Well, hello everyone. Impromptu broadcast just to say hello, reach out there, and I guess just ramble a bit. The thing is, after I guess I don't know, I think it's been about a year and a half since I've last spoken to my parents, and being able to finally get that distance from them that I've lacked all my life, you start to see things, and what you just accepted as commonplace back then, with the distance and not ever having to deal with these people face to face, you can really start to look at the past and see it in the context that it really was. And things that should have been glaringly apparent back then become incredibly apparent now. And I won't bullshit you. It's definitely been a rough week, couple of weeks for me. Kind of bums me out, to be honest with you. When we had Trisha Kafari, a Dan fan on, I was so looking forward to that interview, but I was not on. I honestly, I was on Xanax because I had come out of a post-traumatic stress episode that really fucked me up, and that's been going on for about the last week and a half since, I believe. Um, so yeah, it hasn't exactly been a whole lot of fun. But for those of you not aware, I don't have a great relationship with my parents, and I don't have any relationship with them now. I finally made the decision that these people were awful people and I could not have them in my life. This all culminated, 2 years ago now, when they pushed it too far. They went too damn far, and I just said enough. And the thing that finally broke it for me wasn't anything they did to me. It was Kat. And they were never pleased. Mom and Dad were never pleased with the fact that I'd moved to Arizona, a state of conservatism and evil, where they carry guns and supposedly hang Mexicans in the streets. Seriously, you wouldn't believe the bizarre shit the typical NPR liberal thinks goes on in a conservative state. Amazingly, I mean, exact opposite goes on here. People mind their own fucking business and are more polite, to be honest with you. But they were never pleased. They were always expecting me at some point to come crawling back. When I was younger, they had always made promises that, it's always hard to buy that first house. We'll help you out. That got instantly rescinded the moment I decided I was going to purchase a house in the horrible, evil state of Arizona. But about a little over a year, or less, it was less than a year into Arizona, they called me one evening, and they were calling me about every other week to argue with me. And that was the other thing, just the ongoing proselytizing for the Democratic Party. It was bad. I mean, it got to the point where I even just told my dad, I don't like it when Jehovah's Witnesses come to my door and do this. Why the fuck do you think I would like it when you do it and your religion, the Democratic Party? And there were other things that had really been piling on. Maybe I'll get into what brought me to this place. But let's just fast forward to the end of the story of why I don't speak to these people anymore. And that was one evening they called, and I was not doing well. And these are my parents. Naturally, you expect on some level, there's family. You trust family on some level, no matter how much shit they are. And they could hear it in my voice, and they said, well, what's wrong? I thought you loved Arizona. I thought it was paradise there. And I said, no, Arizona's fine. Arizona's actually the only stable thing in my life right now. It's everything else that's going on, which didn't make them any more happy. But this was when BLM and Antifa were setting the country on fire. And Kat's father was on his deathbed. We didn't know how long he had. Turned out it was only 2 weeks. But we knew Kat's dad was not long for this world, dying of cancer. And I had to send Kat at the very last minute to Virginia to see her dad, which was on fire. Not only was Virginia on fire, the neighborhood her dad lived in was being looted and on fire. And I said as much. I said, Kat's father's dying. Like, we can only afford to send her out there. And it's that in itself, you want to support your wife when a parent's dying, don't you? But to add insult to injury, I was sending her someplace that was not safe. I was sending her directly into a neighborhood that had portions of it on fire and being looted. This was not their concern. In fact, the fact that a man was dying and that my wife was rushing out there did not even fucking click as an issue in these people's minds. No, they wanted to argue with me that those riots going on and those fires were right-wing propaganda and it was all fake and it wasn't really happening, and that BLM doesn't do that and Antifa is a myth. They do not exist. And they wanted to argue with me. Now, let's say, altruistically speaking, they'd really believed that. Let's say mom and dad really believed that BLM was a nice, happy, peaceful organization with happy feelings all of the time, and that Antifa truly was a myth. You would think the logical step would be that a caring parent would say, oh, don't worry about that. That's just the news exaggerating. Those things aren't really happening. Kat will be safe when you send her out there. That's not what I got. I got hostility, which tells you everything you need to know. And I flat out called them morons and just hung up on them. Sent them an email that evening that said, forget I exist. Get rid of all of my pictures, remove me from the will, don't call me, don't contact me ever again. Just consider me as if I never existed at all. And they didn't pay attention to that, of course. I'm kind of wondering if they even read the fucking thing. But I didn't speak to them for 6 months, and finally I get these multiple pleading texts and emails from my mother saying that my dad's on his deathbed and I should really talk to him. She lied. Yeah, he had gone to the hospital because of some heart issues. The guy was fucking fine. So it was just more manipulation and lies to try and rope me back into their goddamn drama, which in itself is pretty disgusting. But I told my mother, I said, no, if I'm going to do this, you're going to listen to me. You're going to fucking hear me out. And I asked her, do you have any idea why I haven't spoken to you for 6 months? They didn't have a clue. Not a fucking clue. No, none. Yes, these are the kind, caring, compassionate liberals, love Trump's hate type. Couldn't even figure out what it is I was so angry about. And so I had to explain what I just told you. Did I get a sorry from my mother? Did I get some sort of excuse? No, I got your goddamn father talks too much sometimes. Damn it. That's it. That is it. Barely an acknowledgement of what happened. And I said, I'm not doing this for you. I'm not really even doing this for him. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. If he's on his deathbed, I'll go talk to him. I made the call, found I'd been lied to, and that was it. I didn't talk to them again. Oh, they tried the he was dying tactic a few more times. Didn't work. Well, Father's Day rolls around and she's getting real desperate and harassing me again. apparently texting Kat, and she actually fucking changed her email address so she could start harassing me. I've blocked her again, but that kind of shows the desperation. And my wonder is, if these people hate me so much, why the fuck are they even trying? Why is it so important that they bring me into their hemisphere of shit? They never seem to have liked me. Everything that I ever thought in my past that I thought might have been altruistic is now in question, especially since I know for a fact that my mother never did anything nice for anybody without believing that it was collateral for later on that she could call upon. But I don't know. That's backstory. How am I here, and why am I pissed off, and why have I been having such horrible sleep, and why have I been hitting the Xanax? Because of rage. For the longest time I felt, if I could cry this out, I'd feel better. But, I'm male. I'm wired male. Men don't do that. And from what I understand, the older you get, the harder and harder it is for a man to actually release emotion that way. I don't think my fucking tear ducts even work anymore. But that's okay. I mean, there's an evolutionary purpose behind that. There's a reason men don't do that. And I accept it. It's fine. It would just make it a bit easier. That's past. Now it's just pure, raw, uncut rage and anger. I'm feeling anger. Buddy says they want to save me. They don't want to save me. If it were they wanted to save me, they would use the carrot. It's never been the carrot. It's always been the goddamn stick. And even a carrot was never a carrot. It was a bribe with strings attached. But the thing is with all this distance and very, very blatantly symbolic dreams that are, sometimes symbolic dreams are hard to understand. You really have to piece together what those symbols are in your mind and what they're trying to tell you. These really aren't. The symbols are so goddamn blatant, it's no mystery what it's about. Dreams about being back at my old childhood home, being locked in a dark room, the symbolism's not that hard, right? Or being stuck at my grandparents' house and my car no longer working and struggling to get the fuck out of there. That's not really very mysterious what this is about. But the thing that keeps coming back to me, and I've told a bit of this story too, is it was always right in front of my goddamn face. And I never saw it. It's amazing that, when your mother spends her whole life telling you, you're not my baby. Not you're not my son. You're not my baby. You should believe her. And I should have believed her. But, what the fuck's a 9-year-old supposed to take from that? Yeah, okay, she hates me. I get it. That's pretty much how I took it. All the stories about when my sister was born, she knew that was her baby because it looked like her and she had these figures, had certain features. And she said the same thing of my brother. I just figured it was because she hated me. I didn't really think much of it. Didn't really think much of the fact that my baby book was pretty fucking empty. Didn't really think much about the fact that all the obsessive shit that the other two baby books of my siblings are packed full of all kinds of weird shit. Like how my mother kept clippings from their first haircut and their umbilical cords. Yes, their baby book has a dried out umbilical cord in it. And mine's pretty fucking slim. And I really, really should have recognized that. No, sorcerers. They didn't fake my father's death. They claimed that he was on his deathbed, but he wasn't. He'd had a minor hiccup in his heart, which is nothing to sneeze at, but he was fucking fine. And I keep looking back, and I keep looking back to that past, and realizing that every time my dad couldn't keep his dick in his pants, I took the beating. I always took the beating. And that was another one. It was like the other two didn't get treated this way. I didn't think about it. The fact that I didn't look anything like the other two. I looked like my dad, but I didn't look like the other two siblings. Never thought about that much. You know, why it was that every Asian girl I dated, one of the first questions they asked was, "Oh, well, what half Asian are you? What ethnicity?" And I just figure, well, I'm not. Yeah, right. The fact that I actually had a friend once in high school out of nowhere turn around and say, "Are you like half Japanese and your sister isn't?" You know, I really, there at some point there should have been a hint throughout my entire fucking life. The number of times I was asked that question. The fact that my mother used to rip on my dad saying how much people thought I looked Japanese. But then again, she also said, "You're not my baby." I should have listened to her. It certainly explains all the other things. When we were each born, supposedly my siblings each were given, all three of us had savings accounts taken out for college. And you know, my parents make money. My parents make, or my father made very good money. And when it was time for my sister to go to college, she's younger than me, she got UCLA. When my brother, it came time to go to college, he wanted to go to California Summer School, California School of the Arts, CalArts. Back when it still was a good school and not shit. He was going for music. The price of going to CalArts is enough to buy a very expensive house and then a nice car. He got it. I was accepted to CalArts, and at the time I wanted to go for their writing program. They said that was too expensive. So I applied to USC. I got USC. But then one evening, my mother came up to my room. My mother, yeah, fuck. The woman named Marcia came up to my room and sat down, and she held my hand and looked me in the eye and said, "You know, your father and I have talked, and we've decided you're just really not worth it. You know you don't deserve this. You didn't really try hard enough. It would be a waste of money for you to go to a school like USC. So we're going to send you to the local Cal State school, Cal State San Bernardino. It's a shitty school." And so I spent the first few years of college driving 3 hours to and from a shit college in San Bernardino. And again, that discrepancy should have been an indicator. All my life, supposedly I was stupid. I got bad grades throughout elementary school and junior high. And when I was a toddler, and believe it or not, I actually have some memories of being a toddler pretty well. It's weird what I can remember. And I remember a lot of time being neglected when I was an only kid. Remember a lot of time just being locked out in the front yard with my mom inside the house. But I also remember my parents generally being happy for the most part. They were living the bohemian lifestyle, you know, the hippie beaded curtains in the house, all the hippie shit, smoking dope, having parties. They were basically flower children of the 60s doing their flower children bullshit. And during those years, other than the neglect and the weird fact that whenever my mom closed a door, my hand seemed to get caught in it, on the whole, those years were pretty good for me. It wasn't that bad. Yes, I'm not shitting you. As a small child, I thought doors bit. I thought that doors were just fucking lethal, dangerous things that you had to be very careful around, because I was always getting my hands slammed in car doors, front doors. It took me a lot longer to realize it was my mom closing the door that was the culprit, not the door. But, at 4 years old, how are you supposed to know that? But then at around five, I think 5 years old, my cousin, we called him Dunk. His name was Christopher. Living in Santa Barbara, was murdered. And it was a very, very bad time. It was kept from me for a long time. I didn't know anything about it. But as a 5-year-old, something critically has gone wrong in your family. I have suspicions about that side of the family, by the way, because Dunk was my first friend. Dunk and I got along great. And the most eerie thing about Dunk is, you see the old pictures, and he and I looked identical. We looked so close. Like I said, my supposed mom's side of the family, I don't look anything like them. I was shorter than the rest of them. I didn't act like them. Was never treated like one of them. Wonder why. But Dunk, he and I could have been brothers by the way we looked. And my Uncle Dan, his wife's half Japanese. I don't know the full story. I can't get a straight answer. But it's easy to piece things together. Dunk was murdered because of highly liberal laws. It was the 70s, of course, and they were going easy on killers. And a man that had already killed 2 children was deemed healed by the state of Illinois. I believe it was Illinois. So he came to Santa Barbara and did the crime again. My cousin Dunk, walking home, it was 2 blocks away. His dad ran a liquor store. His home from the liquor store was 2 blocks away. It was the 70s. You still let 5-year-olds run around outside. This prick on a motorcycle rolled up, took Dunk, raped him, cut him up, and dumped him on I believe a sandbar in the bay. And that motherfucker should be dead, by the way, the guy who did it. But thanks to Jerry Brown, he got a stay of execution. Thanks, Jerry Brown, you piece of shit. Because it was inhumane. I can only hope that piece of shit, who's apparently still alive in prison, is getting it up the ass every day. That's my only hope. But when Dunk died, something critically changed. To my father, I won't blame my father for this. My dad spent about half a year up in Santa Barbara with his brother, giving him moral support, as his son was missing for about that long. I had a grandmother on my dad's side of the family come stay with us to serve his mom, and my mother went to work. And during that time, my mother's hatred of my father just went through the roof. Now, prior to this, they had some weird free love thing going, by the way. I don't remember it very well. I just remember that as a child, there were drunken parties and dad kissing other women. I remember that much. But now, apparently, him up in Santa Barbara, my mother cracked. I don't know what the hell happened. And while my sister was a saint, I took all the abuse. I don't know what my dad was doing up there. I do know he did cocaine for some reason, but okay, look, a kid got murdered. Maybe, I don't know. But I do wonder if he fooled around up there as well. But the longer he was up there with his brother helping him out, the more I was being treated like shit. Now, I had always been treated as kind of the third wheel. It was always my sister who was important, and then my little brother came around years later. But those times are starting to come back to me, and I mean, I remembered a lot of it, but it's now in context that I'm remembering it. And I was starting to look back through all those years and realizing that, yes, my mother was an abusive psychopath or sociopath. I mean, the bitch gave me a black eye for no reason. I was, I think, third grade once, and I was supposed to stay the night at another kid's house. And she'd forgotten. And as we're driving home, we're driving by the kid's house, and I say, "Oh, you got to drop me off. I'm staying the night at Jack's house." And she just let out this guttural scream and swung her arm across. I was in the passenger seat, and just knocks me in the eye. And I got up, and the first thing I thought, I've told this story before, was that's why stars are always shown flying around the Wile E. Coyote's head when he's bonked over the head. I'd never understood that part of the cartoons, why it was that Wile E. Coyote always, whenever in the Looney Tunes someone got smashed in the face, they'd see stars. But she smashed me in the face, right in the eye, really fucking hard, and I got out of the car, stumbled, and hit the ground. And for a second there, I saw these explosions of like supernovas in front of my eyes. The whole world went black, and the kind of this sizzling starscape of boiling images. I guess phosphenes are the term. I don't know. I think that's what they call them. Before I came back, and then she drove off, and I didn't do anything. That's the thing. I didn't fucking do anything. And I remember going into the friend's house. And, I remember this is the 80s, and they always had the commercials on TV and the very special episode of sitcoms where if your mom or dad does this to you, tell somebody. And usually in the sitcoms, you always had the stupid line of the kid would say, "Oh, I got this black eye because I fell down." And as a kid, I thought, who the fuck would believe that? That is the dumbest lie ever. Yet, I walked into my friend's house, and his mother looked at me immediately and says, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" And I said, "I fell down." I fucking said it. I said the same fucking thing that they do on TV. So I guess that's something people really do say. And the thing was, she nodded and acted like she bought it, but she didn't. The look on that woman's face of mix of horror and I guess helplessness, I won't forget that. I won't ever forget that. So with all that backstory, the impact of what that is, I always knew this shit happened, but I suppose it wasn't until I got this distance that I could really feel it and really recognize how terrible it was. I mean, I could get into other abusive things my mother did, like I guess the other real standout image, I mean, aside from all the times she hit me, which again I figured out was happening whenever my dad couldn't keep his dick in his pants. I took the beating. Actually, I told him a few times too that, when she was pissed at him, I'd get the beating. And he said, "Oh, that's just because she gets mad at me. Don't worry about it." It's like, well, excuse me, it is real pain. But he seemed perfectly fine. He knew this was going on, or he didn't want to know what was going on, and enabled it. So, yes, love trumps hate. These are the kinder, gentler liberal parents who are always telling us how horrible conservatives are, who discipline. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. Now, the other real terrible thing that has always been one that stood out to me was that, believe it or not, what a shock. At age 6, all this is going on, right? My mom's going bonkers and taking it out on me, constantly screaming. My best friend has been murdered and no one's told me. and my father's gone, and I don't know why. Lo and behold, my first grade, I blew Fs. Everything was F. I got F, 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 F. But that was my fault, apparently. I was stupid, you see. Didn't matter that I had shown advanced reading skills and math and all that other stuff before all this shit happened. No, I was broken and I needed, well, they didn't put me on Ritalin. They gave me some other drug, but it was essentially, the same thing. Oh, your kid's got ADD. Here, put him on this drug. And then but the weird thing was that school was nearby the house, and actually I enjoyed going to that school. But then after that, my mom went through an identity crisis, ditched the whole hippie thing, and decided she was going to go back to being her parents' daughter. She was going to be a good, strong Catholic Mexican. Again, I repeat, she's not really my mom. Okay, she flat out said I'm not her baby. And she was always, it was weird because around her family, she was always making excuses as to why I was physically shorter than the rest of them, why I didn't look like any of them. Essentially why I didn't look like the rest of them, including my siblings. There were always various stories, including the fact of, Lee did LSD and, that does bad things to the chromosome. So, it kind of messed him up. Yes, I shit you not. That was one of the things she would bring up. And she blamed my bad grades on, your father's genes are all screwed up. But anyway, my mom decides she's going back to her mom and dad, and she's going to pretend she's a Mexican. Long story. I don't want to get into my mother or Marcia's side of the family. They're Mexican, but they're not really Mexican. It's kind of a long, involved story. They're really Spaniard and French, but I don't know. I don't even want to get into it. Let's just put it this way. You've got to imagine a family that, for some reason, really embraces the Mexican identity and has no fucking clue what it is. So they're acting out a Mexican identity they don't have. And it's kind of ridiculously embarrassing. The only one that had any claim to actually understanding Mexican culture was my mother's father, Ruben, whose parents were from Mexico, but then their lineage wasn't Mexican. It was Spaniard and French, but that's neither here nor there. Really, the culture of that family that I was, my mom's side of the family was white trash. After that first year of blowing it in first grade, my mother was a firm believer that she was a feminist like Gloria Steinem and could have it all, and she wasn't going to raise her kids, damn it. Raising children was fucking demeaning. So she peddled us off to her mother, my Lolita, and I didn't fit in. I didn't belong there. I wasn't one of these people. I was surrounded with all these cousins that were supposedly related to me. I didn't act like them. I didn't look like them. I didn't fit in with them. And it was glaringly apparent. Being a full head shorter than the rest of them meant I got my ass kicked a lot. And then I was sent to a very bad school of the area. I was stuck. What it was every morning they'd drive me out to Norco, which was about 45 minutes away from where I actually lived in Riverside County. And where I was living in the suburbs, and believe it or not, fit right in and was very happy there and had friends. I did not fit into, I didn't fit into Norco whatsoever. And it's weird. On the one end, I have a lot of respect for conservatism and people who live rural lives, but there are people who live rural lives, and then there is white trash. And a lot of these people were meth cookers and shit kickers who couldn't do anything better in their life, and it was not a good environment, and their kids weren't great either. And in that environment, I had zero friends, and I was again getting my ass beaten every fucking day. And the experience for me there, and this is what hit me the last night, actually, this is why I'm using the alien, is it didn't matter how much I was told I was stupid. I knew I was smarter than the rest of them. It didn't matter that a doctor said I needed to be on some drug because I was ADD. I knew I wasn't stupid. I knew I was smarter than every goddamn one of them. I knew there was something wrong, but I knew it wasn't my intelligence. And being surrounded by my so-called or supposed relatives, because what I would do is I'd go to school in Norco, and then I'd come home to my grandmother's house and be taken care of till about 7 o'clock, as my mom led her career as a school teacher. I was surrounded by cousins and uncles and people who were not very healthy people. And it was violent. I had an uncle drunk on the couch all the time. Just to give you a sense of how much of a shitbag this uncle was. He made a fucking sex tape with one of his wives and then showed the kids to show off how big his dick was and what a great guy he was in bed. That's the environment we were being put into. And if you ever brought this up to my parents, they would, oh, you're exaggerating. It wasn't that bad. This is also the same uncle that at age, I think it was 8, took me to see a movie he took all the kids to see a movie, his sons and all that. And it was, they said it was Star Wars. He said, let's go see Star Wars. I'm fucking 8 years old. Hell yeah, I'm going to go see Star Wars. It was Poltergeist. And the thing is all the other cousins are loving it. They're laughing their ass off. People are vomiting worms, and people are getting their flesh ripped off. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Poltergeist is a good film, but not for an 8-year-old. I'm not really sure what the fuck the deal was with my other cousins, why they loved it. But for me, it scared the ever-living shit out of me, and I lost it the moment the dude starts ripping his face off. And I went running, crying to my Uncle Eddie, who took us to the film, screaming, right, in terror. And he literally kicks me to the ground and says, quit your crying, you stupid pussy. Shut up and get back in your goddamn seat, pussy. And after that, I was the fucking pussy because I couldn't handle that. So anyway, yeah, that's the environment I was in. And it occurred to me last night, and this is why I'm using the gray alien avatar again. To me, being in that environment every day felt like I was the spaceman who'd crash landed on Planet of the Apes, and that I was surrounded by a bunch of screaming chimpanzees that were constantly chirping and howling and beating the crap out of each other and hurling their shit. And it didn't matter how smart I was, any one of them could tear me to fucking shreds. That was the environment I was in. And frankly, that was my life until about 8th grade, when I insisted I was never going back to that environment, and I was going to go to school in the suburbs again. And frankly, life got better immediately. But my sister didn't have to go to that school. My sister apparently scored great and got to go to a really, really nice school with extracurriculars and all this interesting stuff to do. I got stuck with, well, the meth cooker school, and I was told to like it. And every morning, my dad would drive my sister to the good school where she could get an education. And my sister was there all night because she had extracurriculars. School I went to didn't have any extracurriculars. But every morning, this is the other story about how fucked up my mom was. is she would boil a pot or a kettle of tea, and she would fill it to the brim, and it was boiling hot. And on the drive over, she would make me hold the tea in one hand and her plate with her toast in the other in the car. And every bump she hit, boiling water splashed over my legs. And then she would scream at me that I was ruining her breakfast and that was the only thing she was going to get till lunch. And how dare I do that? And then, of course, when we came to the train tracks, she'd just like floor it. And you can imagine how that went. So that went on for, I don't know how many years. But I look back at all this and I'm like, I'm feeling that now. I think that's the difference. For the longest time, I thought this was all the post-traumatic stress from getting shot. And it really wasn't until coming here that I realized, I've moved past that. I still have post-traumatic stress from getting shot, and it's as good as it's going to get, but I've learned to cope and adapt. It's not going to rule me. And I suddenly realized all these years, no, this is what I've been dealing with. And it's only now that I can see or actually process how fucked up it all was. And just how much of my life was a lie. How much they told me, all these things they told me were lies. And I knew I was lying. A lot of it I knew I was being lied to. They'd do something and then they just go on and on saying, oh, that never happened. Or how many times I'd catch my mom lying to relatives about me, saying things about, oh, well, he's got health problems, or his father did LSD, that's why he looks that way, and basically various excuses as to why I didn't look like any of the other kids. Do the math, right? Going back to my refrain, if your mother tells you all your life, if she keeps telling you you're not my baby, believe her. Fucking believe her. When your Asian girlfriends start asking you, well, what percentage Asian? What half are you? You should listen to them. When non-Asian people start asking, well, why is your sister brown and you're not? You're Asian. Or actually, specifically, they always said Japanese. And I know for a fact that my dad slept around a lot. I also know for a fact that as long as the paycheck kept coming in, my mom let it happen. And I used to think that didn't happen until they started having a rough marriage. Nah, I think it was always there. In fact, I'm certain and I know it was always there. It also explains why all the stories about my birth don't make any sense, and why the stories they'd always tell me don't match the birth certificate, which I really didn't look at until a couple of years ago. But Jesus fucking Christ, man. So why did I say parents' lies and transgenderism? Because all my life I was used as a prop. I served a purpose. I wasn't a human being. I served a function. And I certainly wasn't treated well as the other two. Another dead giveaway should have been, in Irish tradition, Finneys. This is an interesting thing. If you ever notice, first off, Finney's not a common name. But if you do meet a Finney, there are a lot of William Finneys or Bill Finneys. And it goes back to history and Will the Conqueror, and that Finney apparently was a general of his. And because of it, it's a tradition among all Finneys that the first son should be named William after the father. If the father's named William, the first son should be named William. I wasn't named William. My brother was. Yeah. Again, put it together. It's not that hard. And I was always told, oh, we didn't name you that because that's a stupid tradition. Except they kept it. Except they did do the tradition. It's actually kind of interesting that, in fact, my brother got a super Irish name. I mean, really, really Irish name. So again, what does this have to do with lies and using kids as props or as property. I'm seeing it happen all over again, and it's something I can't really process quite yet. So some of you know this, but when this was before Trump got elected, this actually started with Comicsgate and Gamergate, which was my dad kept showing me the articles about all this horrible shit going on in comics and gaming. And I'd say, I know these people. These are lies. What's being said in these publications are lies. And they didn't like the fact that I was telling them their favorite liberal publications were lying. It's like, I know this person personally. That's not true. Or I was at this event. That's not true. And my father especially just kept getting pushier and pushier and pushier about me needing to adopt this narrative that the press was putting forward. And he's one of those people, if CNN doesn't say it, it isn't real, basically. And so there were numerous times where I even said, look, the path you're going, one of these days, you're going to consider me the enemy. Are you going to choose me, your son, or are you going to choose the narrative and the ideology? And I got my answer. After Trump got elected, Kat and I, but especially me, became the punching bag. They couldn't beat up on Trump, so I got the beating. Not figuratively. I'm not getting hit anymore. That stopped at 16 when I punched my mother back. Yeah, she started to wail on me, and I basically punched her back, and that ended that. But yeah, it was just constantly being ripped on. And I would point out things that were just common sense knowledge. I was pointing out that the feminist movement was getting out of control. I pointed out that the left was going nuts. I was pointing out this woke shit is getting dangerous. And this gender stuff's crazy. And this led to multiple times of being accused of being a white nationalist by my father and my sister. My sister said Kat was an anti-Semite. Why? Because she and I flat out said, no, Milo Yiannopoulos has every reason to hold a private event and hold his comedy show in Berkeley. That apparently made us Nazis. And I don't know if you can process what it's like to have your father on multiple occasions legitimately accuse you of white nationalism. And the thing was, it wasn't for expressing any white nationalist view. If it was just for expressing views like, hey, you know, maybe the liberals are wrong on this, was enough. But that punching bag and that abuse just kept getting worse and worse. You know, they couldn't hate Trump, so they hated me. And I kept warning them. I'm saying the path you guys are going on, eventually, I'm just going to be the enemy to you. And we definitely got to that point. But before we did, the other real breaking point was first when my sister was going in on calling Kat an anti-Semite and calling me a facilitator of Nazism for believing in free speech. Before, you know, I had pretty much said, I'm not dealing with my brother and sister anymore. No, I just not doing it. Nor am I dealing with the extended family anymore. I don't really feel related to them. I don't feel any part of them. I don't like any of them. I'm not participating. And that really did make life a bit better. And at that point, I was just seeing my parents. And then came the day that my mother gleefully came to my house and told me that my brother decided my brother's wife decided that their 3-year-old wasn't really a girl, but was in fact a trans man or a trans boy. And that they were putting her through therapy and getting her ready because clearly, you know, gender is fluid. And they had just completely bought into the whole lie of, it was bizarre how their reality could just change at a drop of a hat. Suddenly, yes, now logic was completely out the window. There was no such thing as men and women, but gender expressions. And suddenly a 3-year-old could be a boy because her mother insisted that the girl had said she was a boy. I never saw any indicator of such. Not one. And I just said, I'm done. I'm out. And I said that to my mother. We're done. And she laughed at me. She thought I was exaggerating. She thought I was overreacting. And she thought it was hilarious. And I walked home and she kept following me, laughing, thinking this was funny, until I got upstairs and shut the door on her. And she really then it finally clicked. I wasn't happy. They thought it would pass. It did not pass. I told them I am not going to be a facilitator or an enabler. I will not participate in any of this in any way. And that's continued. That's still going on. And that poor little girl, she must be about 7 or 8 now. I don't remember. Maybe a little younger. Is now considered a boy, dressed as a boy. Guess what my brother named her? Him. William. What she would need to have gotten my father's endorsement for. And it really kind of became very clear to me that my dad doesn't believe in anything. He believes in essentially his side. That's it, at any cost. And it was weird, the more and more he kept talking about the Democrat Party, the more it sounded like religious proselytizing. I think the more disgusting part is that my mom knows this is wrong. She knows this is bullshit, but she went along with it and facilitated it anyway, paid for it anyway. Now, I'm going to get into some money things, and then I'm going to get into why this relates to my past and what's going on now. One, when I was young and had a very hard time socializing with people, and go figure. As I've said to you more and more, time and time again, that one of the reasons I use the alien icon, among other reasons, it's a pretty long story, but one of the reasons is I really do feel like I'm just kind of drifting through the world, not really a part of the human race, watching it happen. I don't really particularly feel connected to it. That was definitely how I felt with my family too. I just didn't really feel connected to it. And there were so many lies told to me about what was real and what wasn't, but I didn't socialize well in the environment I was in. And so naturally, I didn't date for a long time. I didn't have girlfriends. I had a lot of girls who liked me. I had a lot of girls who hung out with me, but I wasn't actually dating any of them. And so my mom really started pushing for me to be gay because she thought it would be so nice if he had a gay son. How interesting. She liked the novelty of it. Hi, Kat. You want to come on in? Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You want to sit and listen?
No, either way.
Either way? It's your parade. Do what you want.
Okay.
So, anyway,
Give me a moment.
yeah. The other thing was, as a child, she used to just fill my head with stuff about how terrible men were. Men were vile. Men were scum. Female features were awful too, by the way. My mother being rail thin, she hated hips and breasts and was quite vocal about it. And she had dumped so much of that into my child head that I think at age 11, I looked at no, not 11, 10. I saw a Playboy. And because I was turned on and liked what I saw, I vomited. And I had vomiting fits for weeks. I felt in my mind somehow I had committed this horrible, horrible, horrible crime against all women. And somehow this was horrible and that I had demeaned and debased women and I was this terrible individual. I got over it, but that went on for quite a long time in my life. That's brainwashing for you, isn't it? And there was that period where I was constantly being told what a man was, and I'll be upfront with you. The constant repeated message from the outside of being told what a man was and not being those things. Now, granted, keep in mind on my mom's side, my mom, quote unquote mom, the lady who raised me, that side of the family, men were shitbags. They drank too much. They hit their wives. They slept around. They amounted to very little. They had tons of kids out of wedlock. Men were in my on that side of the family really weren't impressive individuals. And I was repeatedly told that was what a man was, and women were these wonderfully saintly, wonderful creatures. And I'll admit there was a brief time in my life where I'm like, well, then maybe I'm not a man. I mean, clearly I'm nothing like any of these chimpanzees. It didn't go that far, but that's how easy it is to fuck a kid's mind up. So much of my life about who I am and what I did and all the obstructions put in my way by my parents. Like I said, as simple as going to a shitty school because I wasn't worth it, or because they were paying for it, I couldn't take the major I wanted, so they got in the way of my writing career. And boy, did they get in the way a lot. If I had just told them to go fuck themselves and just follow a writer's life, I probably would be 10 years ahead of where I am now. I eventually did, though. But all these lies about who I was and what I was stupid, I was malformed, my genes were screwed up, I had stunted growth, I looked different than the rest of them, I was shorter than the rest of them for genetic reasons, or my dad did LSD, that's it. Or as my mom's proud proclamation, my genes didn't do that to you. Add that on top of her always saying, you're not my baby, and then you get, yeah, it's very obvious. It was also the number of times she tried to rip me off, always trying to rip money off of me. Meanwhile, she blew her retirement to buy my brother 2 houses and a car. Yeah, blew a ton of money putting him through a inpatient care to deal with his drug addiction. Same for my sister. But for me, constantly trying to rip me off. So let's now fast forward to my niece, who has been made a boy, apparently. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get over this. I don't know if I'll ever be able to process it or really come to terms with this. It's not the same, but I'm seeing it all happen again. I'm seeing a child who's being constantly lied to. Maybe because she doesn't fit the right mold. Maybe it's because she isn't what they wanted. I don't know. I can't tell you. But I'm seeing this kid being told she has all these problems, being told all these lies about what she likes and who she is and what she wants, being put through therapy and probably drugs. I shudder to think if she's on puberty blockers. Keep in mind, this is California, so this shit's encouraged. I don't know why I was strong enough to survive. I have no fucking clue why it was, despite all the shit they told me. I knew I was smarter than the rest of them. That I never internalized all the messages that I'm an idiot. that I was mentally disabled and that my bones didn't correctly form. That's why I'm short. Something, that's why I didn't look like these people. It wasn't, the simple answer. I'm a bastard. I'm not her fucking kid. Okay, there's the real answer. And it's not the same, but it's similar. I'm seeing now my brother and his wife play a similar game on a kid. Is she going to be strong enough to keep her identity intact? Or is she going to take the suicide route? And that's where I'm at. That's been my biggest obstacle to writing lately. Yes, the book is almost fucking done. I promise you. I worked on it all last night. The chapters I'm putting all it's almost done. I promise. Hell, I'm posting preview chapters right now on the Discord. Link in the description. But I think this is going to be the next story I tackle. Is what I'm talking to you tonight. How I deal with it. I haven't really read any of your comments. I have no idea what you guys have told me. But this is cheaper than therapy, huh? Cheaper than drinking, too. Actually, the thing is, I actually don't really drink. That's the other thing that really blows me away through all of this. I never developed a drug problem. Actually stayed straight edge most of my life. There was about a 1.5 year period in my life in my 40s that I drank for a 1.5 years. And that was because my grandfather, one of the few decent people in my life, died. That the family played it for all it's worth, playing the drama out. It wasn't about this man's death. It was all about them. And then to top that off, Archaea was screwing me on my publishing agreement and not paying me and trying to screw me out of the money that I was owed for the movie rights. So those two things on top of each other, that is the only time I turned to alcohol. And I wasn't an addict. I was just medicating in the stupidest way possible. I just didn't want to think. And the interesting thing was a year later, I said, okay, I'm done with this, and put it aside and never went back. So, I don't know how the fuck I survived the way I did. Hell, I don't know why the fuck I've got 46 of you guys listening to this story. I'm not sure what the cult... I think really the cherry on top of this is I see all this gender shit going on right now. I see all this woke crap and this leftist ideology and all this crap that my family tried to indoctrinate me into. They used to tell me how moral they were and how horrible conservatives were. And none of it was true. They had so many terrible things to say about everybody, yet portrayed themselves as being such giving, loving, open-minded, open-hearted liberals when they were anything but. And that's I don't know. That's another one I'm going to take a long time getting through. Is just how much I was lied to. Realizing that one of my worst habits growing up was talking shit about people, and it wasn't because I didn't like anybody. That was how people around me interacted. That was how my family socially interacted. All they did was talk terrible things about everyone around them. They never had a nice thing to say about anyone. I thought that's how human beings socialized. I think I'm kind of spent. You want to hear about alien abductions now? I don't know. I don't know where to go with this. I don't know if Kat's coming back. Oh, it's been an hour. Okay, I'll look at some of your comments. See what you guys have to say. But I'll say another thing is that I see what's being done to kids today across the board. all this gender shit, all this lies, all this identity crap. Because that was another one, is my parents were always trying to raise me with identitarian bullshit. And I came to the conclusion that this leftist shit is some of the most racist ideological poison ever created. They're always going on about, conservatives this, conservatives that, Christians this, Christians that. It's like, the most racist comments I ever heard came from my parents. They're always, the abortion issue, on and on. And I don't care what your take on it right now is. It was the constant lie. Oh, Christians only care about babies till they're born. That's not true. I learned that firsthand. What do you think all those pregnancy crisis centers are? They're to help mothers before and after birth. And the fact that Catholics is as I met Catholics who could afford adoption did. It was amazing how many Catholics I had met in my life who had their own kids and then adopted one or two as well. And the fact that when I found out that conservatives and especially Christians gave more money to charities, especially children's charities, than blue states across the board. No, blue states, the left, liberals wanted everyone else to pay for those kids out of our tax dollars. They didn't want it themselves. Other people would pay for it. Okay, let's see. Hold on, your mom, you fake mom is Mexican mom. Okay, makes now God. Well, she's not my mom, dude. I told you. I've said multiple times through the podcast, that woman is not my mom. And she made it pretty clear. She said a lot of other things in life too that I should have listened to. Like how she'd always brag to her friends that when I was a toddler and I would cry in the middle of the night, that she would get up and shove me into my father's arms and say, "Here, he's your baby." It was so fucking obvious. Why didn't I hear it? I always thought, oh, she just hates me. That's all. Why didn't I fucking hear it? She was saying it right in front of me. Here, you hold him. He's your baby. And she said that multiple times in front of people. It was never like behind closed doors. She said this shit. She always said it out in public in front of friends and family. You're not my baby. But then always making excuses why I didn't look like the rest of the family. I don't know. Kat just got off work, and I don't think she's coming back. So I think I'm going to go spend the evening with her. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I think there was a purpose to all this. But moral of the story is, leftists like to destroy things. They don't love anybody. They don't build anything, and keep your kids away from them. They don't like family or children. All right. Have a good night, everyone.